Morning, everybody. Great to be with you. Another edition of the Morning Briefing. I'm Jeff DeForest, along with Mike Lubie, and thrilled to be with you here on NoFilter.net, Caffeine TV, and all of the other platforms provided for us here by the good people, Joe Manuel and Eric Burns and company at No Filter. An inundation lately, Lubie, and it's even been fused into a couple of shows that we were doing of Christmas music offerings. So that's become a gigantic industry. I think even like Simon and Garfunkel are coming out with like a Christmas album. They haven't performed in years. Everybody's got one going. Every rapper has a Christmas album. We had the occasion, and we discovered this trend when we had the occasion to interview Don McLean, who was the author and performer behind what I think still is one of the most hideous songs in the history of the musical industry. Now, we were very, generous with our flattering compliments for Don McLean when he's on the show about the wonders of this song. And he would be the first to admit, I mean, when you can ride a ship like that for 50 years, and did he ever do anything else of any significance except put out this recent Christmas album?
I don't think
But the song, of course, is Bye Bye Miss American Pie. Took my Chevy to the levee because the engine had died. And you're thinking, what are you going to do with this Chevy Vega? How did anybody ever, how much money exchanged hands? This had to be worse than any FIFA bribe. When Motor Trend magazine, a highly respected industry watchdog, named the Chevy Vega in 1972 as the Motor Trend Car of the Year. This was a car, Lubie, that if you got 32,000 miles on it, you were probably the luckiest man. You were Lou Gehrig. You were the luckiest man on the face of the earth. But that being said, I mean, that is one of those songs, and we have a big debate about this. I don't know where you end up weighing in. There are a couple of other entries that you could put on the list there, where if that song gets stuck in your head, you can't get it fucking out of your head, no matter what you try to do. It's been stuck in my head, and this is the reason we've started this show this way. Bye, bye, Miss American Pie. And the other one, and we had the chance, the opportunity to speak with the lovely Debbie Boone, who was a delight, by the way, as was McLean. I mean, these people were very, very heartened, by the support they've gotten over the years. As Debbie Boone told us, if she was invited into a studio to record "Happy Birthday" to somebody, she would go there just so she could make a record. She was, and the daughter of Pat Boone, who was a legendary singer in his time. And what happened to him? He ended up like selling some just cockamamie scheme he tried to on Shark Tank. And Mark Cuban said, you know what, Pat, you were brilliant in your day as a performer, but you're a crackpot when it comes to this sort of thing. I wouldn't invest a dime in this. I'm going to sell the Mavericks just even thinking about this. Crazy stuff. But she had the song, Debbie Boone, You Light Up My Life. And you thought, oh, my God. I mean, first of all, that's a foreign concept. You happily married, one of the few guys I know, Michael, that is happily married. Would you ever consider that the lovely Shirley, your wife, actually lit up your life?
Oh, I love her with all my heart. She makes my life a pain, makes my life more difficult every moment of every day.
So we even have to light up a joint every couple of seconds. Never mind lighting up my life
every day.
But if that song gets stuck in your head, which is worse? You Light Up My Life or Bye Bye Miss American Pie? I guess you could throw in another one from the past that I was familiar with in the year 2525, Zager and Evans. That was an horrendous offering. Horrendous. Don't Worry, Be Happy was another one that became kind of an insipid invasion of your mind. You weren't able to think straight as you had Don't Worry, Be Happy. But all these guys are coming back now. I'm surprised Debbie Boone hasn't called us and asked us if we could help her promote another Christmas album. As, how are you finding it? I mean, as Christmas music, why are we having this explosion of Christmas music? It's bigger than the furor over Tommy DeVito, who has taken over the sporting world, my friend. And this is great because you were doing a lot of fetching yesterday, to use a little Jewish slang, about the Miami Dolphins' collapse against the Tennessee Titans. And the problem was it opened up a Pandora's box for the people in South Florida where we reside. And maybe football observers in general, who had already questioned whether the Dolphins had beaten any kind of reasonable level of competition. All the teams they beat or have defeated this year, and that was 9 going into the Tennessee game. All of them had losing records.
Except for the Broncos.
Except for the Broncos, who were losing at the time, too.
Yes.
And badly. They beat them with a 70 spot.
Yes.
That game almost looked like the LSU women against McNeese State, which is a disgrace, Kim Mulkey. I don't know. What do you do? They beat McNeese State last night, the LSU women in college basketball. And the problem with women's college basketball is a lot of it, to me, and this is an unpopular opinion, Lubie. Everybody wants to embrace this as if, wow, I mean, what a great sport. And at certain levels with certain teams, it does look pretty good. But even at the highest level,
It's fucking boring.
still, a lot of it reminds me of a rugby scrum where, seldom do you see rebounds in a men's game actually land on the floor before they're before they're in the grasp of a player. And this is one of those things. And then you have like six girls or six young ladies diving for the ball, and that constitutes a game. But a 133-44 shellacking of McNeese State with a 47-0 run in the midst of it points out that the real inherent flaw of being overwhelmingly excited about women's college sports, because there's just no depth. As soon as you get away from a handful of teams, I mean, holy Gino Auriemma, what kind of a beating, what kind of sadomasochist with, I'm sure Kim Mulkey had her starters in the game there, trying to protect that lead when it only swelled to 80. Just an ugly story, but this is a good story, all right? I mean, it's interesting. We were talking about a tale of two cities yesterday, where in South Florida, people are now questioning a Pandora's box of ugliness opened up and rose all of a sudden in the middle of what was somewhat of a Cinderella ride to being 9-3. Opportunity to be the number one seed. Still a head-to-head matchup coming down the road with the Baltimore Ravens. That one's on the road. The Jets looked like a likely target for another victory, and you were assuming that the Dolphins were going to be 11-3 going into a 3-game stretch at the end of the season that everybody's been looking at from the beginning of the year, and it became especially important because they hadn't proven that they could beat these good teams. They had lost to the Bills, they had lost to the Philadelphia Eagles, and any opportunity they had to show that they were ready to take on the big time.
The Chiefs looked like garbage. I mean,
Chiefs, yeah.
Chiefs. It wasn't like the Chiefs looked good. Like they controlled that game and they still lost.
Right. So everybody's grousing now. Turns out Miami's starting center, who was, you would have to say, the glue, the galvanizing force behind any success their offensive line had. Other than that, like you pointed out earlier on a program we were doing, Lubie, I mean, they may as well just be going to Walmart and getting guys. Attention, Walmart shoppers. There's an opening at right guard for the Miami Dolphins. If you'd care to apply for that job, please see the manager at the self-checkout counter right now. Right, the guy's got like some giant can of tuna fish he's carrying up there, and next thing you know, he's blocking for Tua Tagovailoa in front of 70,000 Dolphin faithful as they take on the New York Jets, which, and it's interesting, the Jets all of a sudden, after this 30-point explosion by Zach Wilson, now they're on the rise, and Dolphin fans are shuddering in fear, my friends. I can assure you, all of South Florida, anybody that's wearing any kind of aqua and orange arrangement, is in the fetal position in the doorway of some closed business, hoping just for a handout of some sort and maybe a victory against the Jets. That's going on while this is a great story, this Tommy DeVito story. And check this out, Lubie. I mean, is there not war all over the universe here and conflict? And we had Zelensky, on his hands and knees practically begging Congress to give him some more cash so he can fight off the Russians. And what's on the front and back page of the New York publications? Tommy DeVito. Front page, back page. But the story, it seems to be his agent. I thought this was his brother. Did you see this when and the guy looks, I'm going to try and I'm hoping you guys can see this picture here clearly. What do you think, Louie? What does that look like?
Yeah,
can you make that up?
It looks like an Al Pacino character from like the late 1970s.
Doesn't it look like Eli Manning? I thought that was Eli Manning. I thought, how clever, man. Eli Manning is dressed like some mafioso kingpin. And it turns out it's a guy named Sean Stellato, who was the agent for Tommy DeVito. And he's part of this story also, where the guy lives in the shadows of the stadium with his mother and his father, is the most improbable candidate to be a star player on the New York sports landscape. And he comes in and starts 4 games. He's won 3 of them in a row. Pulls out a miracle comeback against the Green Bay Packers, something that your man Tua Tagovailoa couldn't orchestrate, with a shot at redemption in a game that they blew against the Tennessee Titans. And what's interesting about the sports world is This Tommy DeVito story, I mean, has just opened up a euphoria all around New York City, and maybe to a lesser extent around the sporting world in general. Who gives a fuck about New York sports? You can hear the cynics out there,
100%.
right?
Yes.
Are we talking to the wind here? Nobody cares about this. No, I mean, this Tommy DeVito story is one of those Rudy-esque stories that you absolutely love if you're a sports fan, and it's invigorated a fan base that otherwise was ready to just throw the season in the toilet after a couple of weeks, where ineptitude and injuries had just ruined any chances that the Giants had of being anything close to what they were last year. And you would like to see a team that makes that kind of progress. Brian Daboll, the coach of the year last year in the National Football League, deservedly so. I mean, he resurrected a flat program that has been down since Y.A. Tittle was chucking the rock. And so, yeah, it was a good story. But you'd like to see that be a springboard for success, more so than to see the thing just completely dissipate and fall apart, disintegrate into negativity. So this has really invigorated the whole New York sports media fan base. And maybe even, I don't know how far it's extended to football fans. It's being compared to Linsanity, which was, of course, the story with Jeremy Lin when he came in. Carmelo Anthony had been injured. Lin all of a sudden got some playing time. He was brilliant. You're forgetting about the great success they had with Clyde Frazier and Earl of Pearl Monroe. They loved this kid, but it was very short-lived because Carmelo came back, started chucking the rock from the Coke machine. Lynn went to the bench, eventually signed a free agent deal with the Houston Rockets, right? And didn't do too much there. And you realized, well, this is one of those things where the flowers are in the punch on this sensational Cinderella story. Hopefully this will evolve, and this Sean Stellato now is being featured as a star himself. But you don't think that looks like Eli Manning at all? I mean, it didn't seem like Eli Manning was supporting his Giants on the field.
It could have been. I mean, this feels like a story that Eli Manning will get behind. A Jersey kid made good. My problem is his numbers are average. Like this last game was this great game. He had one touchdown. Now he didn't get sacked, so
he doesn't turn the ball over, which is an unfortunate penchant of not just backup quarterbacks, but especially backups in comparison to guys that are starting on a regular basis. And what happens? It usually looks like. Can you even say this? Do you have to use the reference to an Asian fire drill? I know it's no filter here, but the old Chinese fire drill, where pandemonium broke out. It was just pure chaos. And that usually is what happens. It's like a substitute teacher coming into a classroom with a room full of wise guys and guys who all want to try and persist in being the class clown. It's going to be chaos, right? Spitballs going to be flying, rubber cement balls, whatever can happen. Nobody's paying attention. They're all making fun of everything the guy says. That's usually what happens and transpires on the field when a backup quarterback comes into the ballgame. But this hasn't been the case. And this guy was so third string, an undrafted free agent, unlikely to make the roster, and now has taken over. I mean, has just stolen the hearts and captured the imagination of virtually every New York sports fan. And it's interesting, right? You have one team that's 9-4 and in a pretty good position. The other team's 5-8. And yet, if you looked at the two storylines and the way that both of these teams emerged from their Monday Night Football games, as the Giants won theirs, and of course the Dolphins lost, two completely different waves of emotion sweeping over those two cities. So that's all part of the fun of being a sports fan. That was a disgrace, huh? I mean, is that one of your beefs? It does look like there's such ugliness sometimes that you see in women's sports. The cruelty. You're thinking women would be more sportsman-like than men would be, and yet they don't mind putting just an ugly, ridiculously torturesque beating on somebody. I didn't see this game. 47-0 run. At that point, what? Should there be a mercy rule?
They don't do it, but yes, like women's college basketball has enough of these stupid ass scores.
Yes,
120-19. That like you should have a running clock. Like that's ridiculous because that's the thing. It's still basketball. So even if you put your third stringers, you can't just sit on the ball. Like you have to like play. Like what are you gonna do? So you're gonna score at more points. To me, you might as well just run the clock and just like no one's coming back from 80 down. Like that's not.
It's like hold the ball. I don't know. Putting on a show for the crowd. What is it? Paige Beckers or Bukers? The UConn young lady that has come back this year.
Beckers.
It looks like Bukers, but I think it's Beckers. And What wasn't she injured? The original knee injury she sustained, that she was injured when UConn was up 70 points on somebody with like 12 seconds to go.
Yes.
And Gino refused to pull his starters, which has been habitual of his hideous lack of sportsmanship over the many years that he's been heralded as one of the very influential and important people in the game. There's an ugly side of it, people. You wouldn't expect it from the women. But I mean, that's where it becomes the most tarnished when you look at just the unmerciful beatings that are being administered for no apparent reason other than to just rub people's face in it. Speaking of rubbing people's face and stuff in dirt, I know he's not the most popular guy, Jim Harbaugh, but are you not hoping, everybody, that Jim Harbaugh not only beats Alabama, but then takes a swipe, goes Andrew Galata, and just punches Nick Saban in the balls. They're supposed to exchange pleasantries at the end of the ball game there, which is going to be a very brief meeting at the center of the field, no matter who wins that ball game. But I mean, is the sentiment universal for Michigan, or are there enough Alabama fans out there among the no filter viewing audience that this is a statement that can only be met with just intense acrimony from our fans? What do you think?
I think it's Michigan or bust.
You should especially feel this way, Mr. Florida State.
I'm not a big Jim Harbaugh fan, and this Michigan team has not endured anyone. They literally cheated all year, and then played the victim. So I'm not fans of them, but I root for them over Bama. They shouldn't even be in the goddamn freaking game at all.
They're going to win it all somehow.
100%.
Some bogus call. They'll institute a rule in the middle of the game that is favorable to Nick Saban that allows him to somehow escape what otherwise would be a certain loss that he was going to be tagged with. But they'll figure out a way for Alabama to win it all. Anyway, we're hoping that Harbaugh just slugs Nick Saban at the center of the field. Don't even pretend, Jim, that you like him, okay? Now that's considering that they would have to win the game first, which is certainly no certainty. All right, we have to run. It's been a lot of fun being with you. Don't get that song stuck in your head. Don't worry, be happy. How annoying did that become? I mean, the sentiment, the message there is something that you can embrace, but after a while, you want to kill yourself because you can't get this song out of your head. Now, that was the thing with Bye Bye Miss American Pie, and I wish Don McLean all the best with his Christmas album. I will see you next time. For Mike Lubie Lubitz, I'm Jeff DeForest. Thanks for tuning in. That's today's morning briefing, and we'll see you next time on NoFilter.net and Caffeine TV.